Good.
Considering both.
Reading from the book Defending the Undefendable by the great Walter E. Block. Talking about prostitutions. Why then the harassment and prohibitions against prostitution? The momentum does not come from the customer. He is a willing participant. If the customer decides that patronization of a prostitute is not to his advantage, he can stop. Nor does the move towards prohibition of prostitution come from the prostitutes themselves. They have volunteered for their task and can almost always quit if they change their mind about the relative benefits. Hello and welcome to another show here on the World Crypto Network, live at Mises University. This is the great book Defending the Undefendable, and well, it defends the undefendable. It goes around the edge cases of libertarian ideology. For example, let me just read here. The prostitute, the pimp, the drug pusher, the drug addict, the blackmailer, the advertiser, the gypsy cab driver, or the slumlord. And all those edge cases and many, many more are in this first volume of 2, where Walter Block explains clearly and with great, great argumentation style on why those things are actually not that bad. Why? Because they are voluntary. And if a transaction or an interaction is voluntary and peaceful, it is good. That's what this book is all about. If you ever have a question about the edge cases of some transaction or some participation, read this book and you will be blown away. It's amazing. So this has been the first day at Mises University. It's been the Monday, and we had many, many great lectures. It's been a lot of fun, and we learned quite some. I'm just going to read about what lectures we had. So first of all, we had a great lecture. Where's the first one? Yeah, the birth of Austrian Economics. Just basically the history of Austrian economics and who were the early founders and who were the later participants up till today. That was really good, by Joseph Salerno. Then subjective value and market prices. Can I, as an individual, judge the value proposition of another individual? I don't think so. What are prices? Why are they important? Well, if you find out, watch this lecture by Jeff Urbaner. Then next one was praxeology, the science of human action and of free exchange. Beautiful subject, get educated. This was a great lecture by Mr. Gordon. Then we had lunch, we did not have lunch. There was a lecture on free lunch and markets by Guido Hilsmann. Great lecture. Unfortunately, I could not participate, but definitely I will watch the recording, which will be up on Mises.org. Next one. Then we had lunch, actually, at the Institute, which I unfortunately could not participate because I was doing a show for you, so better be grateful. And then it started again with the division of labor by, sorry for pronouncing your name, but Miss Dorobat. I don't know, a weird name to pronounce. I hope I pronounce it correctly. A great lecture, though. The next one was a really good one with a great PowerPoint presentation, the Austrian capital theory. Actually, I think that was the best PowerPoint presentation that I ever saw because it has like real nice animation and everything. If you want to know what I'm talking about, watch the lecture by Mr. Garrison. It's available for free on Mises.org. And we finished the day with a phenomenal lecture by Mr. Klein about entrepreneurship, but not just the Elon Musk typey thing of entrepreneurship, but actually real entrepreneurship. People that take action in an uncertain world and try to move us forward. They bring capital and production goods together to produce consumer goods. And that's basically what they do. So now we are here after the Mises lectures, and we are going to talk about, well, whatever. This is a live show, so it might be a bit, well, rough on the edges, but that's just how we like it here on the World Crypto Network. And I have with me, let me swing the camera, a bunch of different young, beautiful minds that really know what's up in Austrian economics. And, well, we're going to talk about everything we want to talk about. Who wants to join me?
I'll be happy to join.
Please, come up. So this is going to be a loose format, and don't expect too much, but don't expect too little. So, if you would want to introduce yourself, who are you, where are you from, and what do you do?
Hello there, my name is Patrick Okenka. I'm from Naples, Florida. I self-study on my own, and work in a small business. I was kind enough to meet Max here just randomly, and he invited all of us just suddenly to a live stream on a crypto network, and we all accepted. Myself included, I was really excited to have it, and I was like, okay, let's take the chance. So, what do you like to discuss on these most of the time?
Well, you said that, well, we discuss really anything and everything.
Anything at all.
Yes. So you said that you work for a small company, right?
Yes.
And I think we Austrians understand that decentralization and fragmentation of companies are really, really important. Why? Because they can specialize on a specific topic. So what do you specialize on with your small company?
And specifically, my small family company specializes in floor covering. So we spend all the time in a rich neighborhood filled with old people who want to remodel their homes constantly, flipping real estate, and we take advantage of that. And it's plenty of money to go for, big market, and we do that all the time, and it's great, great money, great business. And in a small business setting, we can fill in whatever we want, all the gaps, and do a good job of dodging the permitting because floor covering doesn't need it. So you can just go ahead and do it as opposed to other construction sites. So we take the owner of the business and us, we're all on the same page to just dodge the government as much as we can and fill in that opportunity that they provide us by not interfering with it, if that makes sense.
Well, but that is great, because especially as an entrepreneur, you realize that the government most of the time is a hassle for you. And then you always have to find ways to pass through government regulation. And there is so much government regulation. But then when you find a field such as yours that actually does not have that much government regulation, you have a huge advantage compared to the other companies, right? Because the other companies, they do have to hassle with that government regulation. And that is, of course, many costs. Right. And so you don't have to carry those costs, which makes you a more profitable businessman, right?
Exactly. We deal with a lot of general contractors whenever we have to deal with any of the walls or plumbing or any of that. And they have to pay significantly more for all the permitting and wait like 9 weeks for a permit. It's absolutely insane. Well, we just go ahead, boom, boom, next week we're in, just because we're taking advantage of the lack of permitting, which is freedom.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. And so do you think that because you do not comply with those government regulation, although there are none?
Technically we do.
Okay, technically you do, yeah, exactly. But do you think that this creates a wrong situation for the consumer, that he is somehow worse off?
Absolutely. Every time we get a job that involves the permitting, their costs go up at least double. And it's no reason, because it's all to do with the price of the permit and then the upcharge for the contractor. And then any type of inspections, like 5 of them in a row, every step of the way, it makes the customer take 10 times longer than it needs to be for the same result regardless. So these regulations really slow it down and hamper it. And I understand kind of why they want it to be specific, because it's in the construction industry. If you mess up, you ruin like maybe 100 homes instead of just one. They're usually apartments. But still, the way that they do it is totally inefficient, and it ruins the experience for the customer, for the installer, and basically everyone involved in the project.
Well, exactly. That's what government regulation does, right? Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, of course. Thank you very much. And so if anyone else would like to come up, we have, I think, 15 more minutes before we have to go to the next great lecture by the amazing Judge Napolitano, who's going to talk about constitutional law. And he's not going to just talk once. He's going to talk, I think, 5 times over the course of the week. So that's definitely going to be amazing. Next up, we have got Jimmy. What's up?
Hey, Max. Good to see you again.
Yeah, we two did an interview a couple months ago.
Yeah, about 2 months ago, I think.
Yeah. We met at Acapulco, another one of those great freedom festivals. And, well, Jimmy is a great guy. So what do you do?
Thanks, Max. I'm the writer-director of the Housing Bubble, which we're going to show here at Mises University. We actually, I'm happy to say, just won an audience award at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas. So that was a lot of fun. They added 50 seats, and we still had like over a dozen people sitting in the hallway watching from outside of the room. So it was,
wow.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. We had Doug Casey, Peter Schiff, Gene Epstein, and on our panel, and it was a lot of fun. This week at MisesU, we're going to have Tom Woods, who co-wrote the film, Joseph Salerno, Mark Thornton, Roger Garrison, Jeffrey Herbener, and Robert Murphy on our panel. So it's going to be a fun week this week as well. But just to give you a little background on the documentary, the idea was to interview people that predicted the crash, ask them why it happened and what's next. So we actually had 2 documentaries. The bigger bubble will come out next year, and the housing bubble is coming out in October. So if people want to check that out at thebubblefilms.com, they can actually get early access to the film by joining our street team. So.
Yeah, and I can personally attest to the incredibly high quality of this movie. It is a masterpiece, honestly. If you're not in Austrian economics, this is a good place to start. Why? It is a rather short 2-part movie, and the first part explains exactly what caused the crisis of 2008 and who called it. And it's filled with immense great interviews by all the guests that he talked about, and they are top of their class in economics. They really know their shit. And if you watch that movie, you are gonna know the shit as well. Why? It is really accessible. It is not difficult. This is not Keynesian economics with a bunch of voodoo science and mathematics that don't make sense. This is logic, and everyone understands logic because it's logical. You know? And the second part, which I think is even more interesting, talks about what the government did after the crash. Because what did they do? Well, they inflated the money supply. Basically, they printed a bunch of money and put it in their own pocket. And we're going to talk, or the movie talks about what that actually does, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's kind of funny because Keynesians really focus on the response to the crash and the time of the crash instead of the run-up to the crash. And Austrians differ in the approach that they believe all these misallocations were made before the crash even happened. And basically the crash is actually the good thing that corrects those malinvestments. And so if a Keynesian made a documentary about the housing bubble, they would almost exclusively focus on 2008 and on. And I made an entire documentary about the housing bubble without even going past 2008. So it's kind of a slap in the face to their theory. But the bigger bubble is really exciting because I think, you know, it was easy to point fingers at home builders and banks with the housing bubble. But as the Fed tries to dump all this government debt back onto the market, and as the government's borrowing even more money as it is, our deficit is looking at over $1 trillion. And it would be that way even without the tax cuts. So we can't just blame the tax cuts. But I think with this next crash, it may be a little harder for people to blame the free market and see how the government's been involved. But that being said, who knows? You know, with the rise of Bernie Sanders, unfortunately, people could misinterpret this. So that's why I wanted to try to educate the average person and not, you know, shove a bunch of economic statistics or like economic vocabulary down their throats. We really tried to make the film accessible to anyone. So
exactly, and that's really what it is. It is super accessible to anyone.
And there's a trailer at thebubblefilms.com as well.
Watch the trailer and go to a nice festival where you watch a movie. Wait a second, Jim. You got a question?
What do you think the next bubble will be? And why do you think it's bigger?
So the question was, why do you think what do you think is going to be the next bubble, and why do you think is it bigger?
Well, it's been described as the everything bubble because in 2003, 2004, in the run-up to the housing bubble, they printed so much money, they pushed interest rates down to 1%, and that created the housing bubble. But this time, central banks all over the world have been printing money at the same time, and they've done it on just a massive scale. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet, you know, is over 5 times what it was before the crash, and they did that very quickly. And so then they kept interest rates all the way down at 0% for a decade, which if you're graduating from high school and you've never even seen interest rates higher than 1% since you were 8, you know, you have no comprehension of that. So I certainly think that although we don't know, you know, exactly when it will happen, I do think these distortions will have to be adjusted eventually. I think we've already started to see the car loan industry, like used cars are already down over 20%. And, you know, they propped housing back up. House prices were trying to adjust back downward, which would have been great for all of us who went to college and have debt, or all of us that are young and can't afford these high prices. But instead, the government did everything they could to prop up the prices and keep house prices high. And as we've seen, it's gotten completely out of control. So those are just a few things, but really anything that's affected by interest rates or anything where if you feel wealthier than you actually are, you're going to do something, you know, like leisure stuff like that. It's really burning both ends of the stick, I guess.
Absolutely. So Jeanette, thank you very much for joining us. Next one, please. And so what I also would like to add that, for example, a project that is financed with a lot of debt and that has a long production stage is usually affected by this inflation and monetary nonsense of the Keynesians. For example, the skyscrapers, because they're really expensive. Most of it is going to be financed with debt, and they take a long time to build. So there's actually a great book. I forgot who actually wrote it, but it's called The Skyscraper Curse. And it talks about as soon...
Mark Thornton.
Mark Thornton was it. Thank you very much. That's why I have such a smart audience here. Isn't that amazing? And the thing is that those skyscrapers, every time a new world record skyscraper is being built, soon there's going to be an economic crash. And that has been true for, I think, the last 70 years, something like that, a long, long time. And well, they are building a new world record skyscraper right now. So that might tell you something. If you want to learn more, the Skyscraper Curse by Mark Thornton. So, nice to meet you. Who are you? What do you do?
My name is Benjamin. I'm translating human action into Swedish, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about Ethereum.
Oh, interesting. Well, first of all, thank you for doing the work for translating human action. It's a phenomenal book. It's not easy. It's advanced stuff, but you can handle it. I trust you. And it's good that we have it in more languages. That's amazing. But let's talk about Ethereum. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so before this show, we were talking about in the audience about Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash. And I don't really think that those are the only options, basically because there is Ethereum. And when we talk about things becoming money, it's of course that we first talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash because they want to become money. But I think that Ethereum has the chance of becoming a medium of exchange, even a greater chance than Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. Because remember, if you, like Carl Menger, what is Ethereum money? That's something that is more marketable, gradually becomes even more marketable because people are willing to exchange for it, because it has some kind of direct utility from the start, because people can use it. And that is actually the case with Ethereum, because Ethereum is like a general purpose blockchain. You can use it for anything. The value of Ether will be much higher than the value of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, you can just send them back and forth. But Ethereum, you can actually do something with them.
I 100% agree. The network effect is one of the most important compounds of a medium of exchange, of a money. Why? Because if you are the only one that wants to have and has a money, it's not really your money, because you cannot trade with it, because nobody wants to accept it. That was the case with Bitcoin in the early days. You had Bitcoin, cool, but nobody was going to accept it. So it's not really your money. So absolutely, the degree of saleability is a very important aspect of a money. Carl Menger on the Origins of Money. Great book, really short, really accessible. Read it. My problem with Ethereum, and again, I'm a huge fan of competition, and I'm writing my bachelor thesis on anarchy and money, so I really love competition. That's amazing, and it's cool that we can disagree on cryptocurrencies. Why? Because we have different valuations of stuff, as we all do. But the problem that I see with Ethereum, first and foremost, the Turing completeness. So with Ethereum, you can write anything. You can literally write any program that you would want, given the resources. So you would have to pay a lot if you want to write an operating system based on Ethereum, but theoretically you could. The problem with this is that this creates, although it creates unlimited possibilities, it also creates unlimited amounts of bugs. And the thing with a good decentralized currency is that it is immutable. So once you put one bug, one little mistake into the system, it's going to be there forever and you cannot change it. And the possibilities of writing a bug in the system, in the software, is exponentially higher, like by many, many factors, in a Turing complete system. And the limited scripting language of Bitcoin is not a bug, it's a feature. Because if we have a limited scripting capability, you cannot do anything. But you can also not have unlimited bugs. And that is really cool. What can Bitcoin do? It's a medium of exchange. You send it from A to B. That's all it does. It's programmable money. You can still do a lot with it. Most of the problems that we have in the monetary system can be solved with Bitcoin multi-signature wallets and with time locks. Those are two very, very, very simple contracts that you do not have to have Turing completeness. And so you do have still many, many opportunities to program in Bitcoin, but you do not have the unlimited amount of risk. We have one more question here.
I'm a bridge builder, so maybe I can get you guys to agree. What are your thoughts, both of you, on the ERC20 shitcoin debacle that is bound to happen? There are too many ERC20 tokens, and it's propping up Ethereum artificially, in my opinion, just because so many transactions are going to just transfer those tokens. So we just want to hear both your thoughts on those.
So the question was our opinion on ERC20 tokens, and especially the bunch of shitcoins that were created. And whether they're good or bad for Ethereum, and whether they have maybe artificially inflated the price of Ethereum. Your thoughts?
And first, regarding the thing you were talking about, Turing completeness, I think that is a bit paternalistic attitude, that someone is going to decide how to use something rather than users. If you want to use Ethereum just like Bitcoin, you're free to do so. but you also have the freedom to use it in more ways and take risks. So I just think that's a great feature. That's not a feature of Bitcoin, that's just a bug as I see it. And with regards to ERC20 tokens, I think those are just great in almost all cases. It's just very good to see that people are allowed to practice their imagination to do many crazy things. And of course there are scams, but there are also things like CryptoKitties, which is just crazy and fun and just the thing we need in a blockchain.
I agree with pretty much everything you said right there. So you really are a good bridge builder. So the thing with ERC20 tokens is that you can do whatever you want. Like that's the whole thing with Ethereum. It's Turing complete. And that also means, that you can create shitcoins. Well, but that's actually not too bad, because other than in a fiat money, where we have legal tender laws, where the government forces you to use that money, to use that currency, this is absolutely not the case in cryptocurrencies. If you want to use Ethereum to build an ERC20 token, you can use it. And if you want to invest your Ethereum in order to get some ERC20 tokens, you can do that. But in the act of you investing in the shitcoin, or whatever you want to call it, you prove that this is a voluntary interaction and that you valued the shitcoin higher than the Ethereum that you paid for it. So I had a nice discussion with Jörg Holtzman about that, and his basic argument is that as soon as it's voluntary, it is no longer a scam. It is no longer theft. And same is the case with inflation. If you have an inflatable ERC20 token that does not have a cap, which you can easily do with a couple mouse clicks on Ethereum, well, people are giving you the money freely and voluntarily. So I don't think that we have many scams in Bitcoin because they are all voluntary. Now, if you lie about something, let's say you say that your coin has a market cap of 50 million, but actually it has a market cap of 100 million. Now that is a scam because you have lied someone and he has given you his money under false pretenses. And that's bad and you shouldn't do that.
Thank you for having this interview.
Well, thank you very much. Well, okay, unfortunately, we do not have any more time left. This was a really, really short one. But the lectures went longer than expected, and especially the after-hour discussion always went longer than expected. And I really did need some lunch, so I couldn't start the show earlier. But don't worry, we're going to be back probably later tonight, at least tomorrow, for some more interviews. I've done now a couple interviews with students, and I would love to get some professors on there, but they are really busy. So it might be that we can have some professors more towards the end of the week, but we don't know. Maybe we're going to get them. So thank you very much for joining us today at this short, brief 30-minute video for the World Crypto Network here live at Mises University, or the Mises Institute in Auburn, Alabama. My name is Max Hillebrand. You can find my stuff on Twitter at HillebrandMax, and my website is towardsliberty.com. If you want to check out my open source and Creative Commons licensed paper on anarchy and money, why we neither need nor want government regulation in money, and especially Bitcoin, go to towardsliberty.com/anarchy. Please donate both to the Mises Institute, because how amazing is the Mises Institute?
Amazing.
It's amazing. But also, please donate to the World Crypto Network, because we all really need the cash to buy better microphones than this one. So if you want to have better sound quality, please donate to the World Crypto Network. Bitcoin address in the description below. Thank you very much for joining us, and check out Walter Block's Defending the Undefendable. And I'm just going to open one thing and talk about the ghetto merchant as benefactor. The question of non-pecuniary advantage and disadvantage have not yet been dealt with, but they exist. And all the non-peculiar advantages are on the side of the merchant located outside the ghetto. The ghetto merchant, apart from the risk he faces to life and property, must bear in addition to the scorn of an outraged public who are angry and resentful at him for, among other things, selling shoddy merchandise at high prices. Well, that just sounds really interesting, doesn't it? If you want to learn more, Defending the Undefendable by Walter Block. It's a great book, and goodbye.